Now today what we're going to do is we're going to look at graphing the sine and the cosine functions. Now, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to pick out which graph here, graphed in blue, is the sine function and which one's the cosine function. That's going to be the goal after watching this little video. Now, before we get started, I like to go out to the internet and watch a little animated video. Now, the animated video will be from interactivemath.com, and to jump out to the internet, let's go ahead and look at it. There it is. It's making it for us. Now, what exactly is happening here? Well, we have a unit circle, and we have our blue dot going around the unit circle. Now, around this unit circle, it's starting and stopping. It starts here, and it goes around the unit circle and stops back here. We call all of that one period of the graph. And this is actually what a sine graph will look like. Now, the 50 just talks about the amplitude, which we'll get to a little later on in a different video. Well, let's jump back to our notes. Jumping back to our notes, let's see, how are we exactly graphing that sine function? Well, we have the unit circle here. We graph the sine and cosine functions and these trig functions using radian values. Now, the radians are what go on our x-axis, so those are going to be what we will use. Our y-axis is going to be the value of the sine or cosine at that radian. So, exactly what does that mean? Well, like we saw just a second ago, we'll start here at 0, and we'll travel around, and the next point we're going to use is pi over 2. Now, pi over 2, our coordinate is 0, 1. Because we have a length usually on the unit circle of a length 1. Going back to our starting point with the radius of 1 as well, a length of 1 here, we would be at 1, 0. Continuing around the unit circle, at pi we would be at negative 1, 0. Keep going around at 3 pi over 2, we would be at 0, negative 1. And making it back one period, going all the way around the unit circle, we will be at 0, 1 again. So, using our radiant values, 0 radians, pi over 2 radians, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Now, here we're going to be talking about the sine function. Now, our points are made up of the cosine and the sine. So we want the second value in that parentheses. We want the sine value. So our sines at 0, 0, at pi over 2, 1, at pi, 0, at 3 pi over 2, negative 1, and at 2 pi back at 0. Well, these numbers here, 0, 1, 0, negative 1, 0, will be points on the y-axis. Okay. And our radians, again, are along the x-axis, so we'll get 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Now, our largest y value is 1. Our smallest y value is negative 1. So it'll be to 1 to negative 1. Now, when we graph this, well, we have 0, 0. At pi over 2, we're up at 1. At pi, we're at 0. At 3 pi over 2, we're at negative 1. And at 2 pi, we're back at 0. So the sine and cosine are waves, so we make parabolas going through them as a wave. Now, what is the cosine function going to look like? Well, the cosine function is going to look very similar in the sense that it's graphed as a wave. But here, we're still going to start at the same spot, 0 radians, and we'll end at 2 pi radians. Now, going back and labeling our points. Now, here we're at 1, 0 again, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. Now, this time we're graphing the cosine. So remember, it's cosine sine, so we want that cosine value going around each time. So, we're going to go 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Now, which points do we want again? The cosine points. So the cosine at 0 is 1. The cosine at pi over 2 is 0. The cosine at pi is negative 1. The cosine at 3 pi over 2 is 0. And the cosine of 2 pi is back at 1. Now remember, these reds are in the y-axis. And our radians are the x-axis. So, we're at 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Now, again, our largest y value is 1. Our smallest y value is negative 1. And now we plot our points. Well, at 0, now we're at 1. At pi over 2, we're at 0. At pi, we're at negative 1. At 3 pi over 2, we're at 0. And at 2 pi, we're back at 1. So we curve through our points and make that wave. So, we have graphed the sine function, and we have graphed the cosine function. Now, I'm going to scroll back quickly. Which one of these is the sine? Which one of them is the cosine? Right. This is the sine, and this is the cosine graph. Great job.